How are companies leveraging retirees to help bridge the knowledge gap in their organization? What are the skills that companies are paying the most for? And how many organizations are willing to hire if you don't check every box on the job description? We're going to talk about this and so much more with Nicole Sims, Senior Director, Regional Director of Robert Half, on today's episode of Bites and Banter. Let's get into it, Nicole.
All right, let's go.
On today's episode of Bites and Banter, we're joined by Nicole Sims, Senior Regional Director with Robert Half. How you doing, Nicole?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing extremely well. I'm excited to talk to you today. Robert Half puts out a lot of great resources, and the one we're going to talk about today is actually one that I look forward to every year because things are shifting in the market, things are happening, and it's super insightful. And it's the Robert Half Salary Guide coming for looking at 2025, kind of what are the trends. So for the audience, Nicole, what is the salary guide? Like, what does it contain?
Yeah, the Robert Half Salary Guide is an annual publication that provides salaries, hiring trends, insights on in-demand jobs and market trends for hundreds of roles, including more than 80 tech positions. Robert Half has been publishing salary forecasts since 1950, and this guide is really seen as a trusted source for both employers and professionals alike.
So lots of good information, and it is, I know we focus on tech, but I think it's really interesting that it just covers so much in so many roles, right, at a broader level. And when I was looking at the overall results, something really stood out to me, like looking ahead at 2025, people seem to be a lot more reluctant to leave their jobs, which I never would have thought that would be a trend we'd see. I'm curious, what's really driving that? What is the research showing that is kind of causing people to, I don't know if you want to call it the great stay, right? Or less eager to be aggressive in looking.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. We went from the great resignation a couple of years ago after the pandemic to the big stay is what we're calling it. There's several factors driving this, including a more normalized level of job openings, somewhere in the neighborhood of about a third of what we saw during the great resignation. So there are less jobs created these days, but also there are individual and economic factors that are influencing a growing number of people to just stay put. This includes a portion of the population that's just happy in their job. They secured some work flexibility post-pandemic, whether it be remote work or hybrid office expectation, and they don't want to risk giving that up. Others place a high value on their job security, especially in an uncertain market. And, sometimes the devil is perceived to be better than the devil you don't. And then there's another population, especially those with long tenure at their employers, that may be concerned that they don't have all the requisite skills needed to be competitive in this marketplace. And so their decision is to stay at their current job.
Interesting. There's just a lot of factors, right, that seem to be contributing. And I think that when the world changes and things change in the economy and, you see that, right, there's going to be shifts in different waves of employers looking for different roles and, different trends that are kind of sticking out. One thing, it almost seems in contrast, and I don't know that it is, but it almost seems in contrast and like almost a challenge that employers are going to have to really figure out how to overcome. Definitely with this big stay or great stay or, that this shift around employers really feeling like they're going to have difficulty meeting candidates' compensation expectations. What do you guys see? You guys work with a ton of different industries, a ton of different employers. What do you guys see employers doing differently to kind of really address this challenge that they kind of foresee when it comes to compensation? Definitely with the candidates seeming to be more likely to stay where they're at.
Right. Great question. We are seeing companies focus on an overall offer package. So not just base salary, but they are attracting and retaining their best and brightest through improved and expanded benefits offerings and perks, including those that are focused on well-being, work-life balance, and career advancement. Companies are also willing to hire outside help to meet, critical deadlines and enterprise project initiatives when the current team doesn't have the skill set or they can't afford to hire on a full-time basis the skill set that they need. When companies do hire full-time, they're willing to flex on some of the job requirements and opt for high potential candidates with potentially less experience, but a lot of upside to get the role filled and get some of the work knocked out. And then lastly, we're seeing, companies automate where they can. We hear a lot about AI, and they are saving salary dollars that were, for on jobs that were previously used for manual tasks.
Yeah, I think AI is something that's not going away, right? We're going to keep talking about it on this podcast, and Robert Half's going to keep looking at the trends in AI, and there's just so much there that's happening and changing in the market, and it's exciting. One thing that I'm curious to hear, definitely when it comes to, you talked about that comprehensive benefits package, right? And it looks very different today, I'd imagine, than it did a decade ago, or even 6 years ago, right? Pre-2020, things look very different. And we talked about it last episode when we had Robert Half on. We talked a little bit about that shift in like the amount of openings that are fully remote versus hybrid. How are employees leveraging kind of this component of hybrid versus on office versus, to really entice candidates, right, as a part of the overall package? What does that look like?
Well, I would say that companies are willing to pay for in-office attendance. Something like 80% of companies are willing to increase their salary offering for candidates that will come into the office 4 days a week. Candidates want a remote or a hybrid environment, but everyone's got a price, right? Extra salary is a good motivator for a lot of people.
Yeah, if you want to get people back in office for that collaboration, I think, let me see, I think the number 66% of managers are willing to increase starting salaries for new hires to work in office. And I think it said 59% of those offering workers up to 20% more, which, I mean, that's significantly to come into the office 4 or 5 days a week. That's a big change compared to, where the world was, a long time ago, which is, again, shameless plug, why I love the stuff Robert Half puts out from white papers and research, because it's so useful to see how the world is changing and how employers are changing, and for employees to know how things are going to look different, right, as they approach the market. One thing, we talk about AI, we talk about kind of the things that are changing. It seems like there's also a challenge for employers really finding the right skills for what they need, right? And what does that mean for both the employee and the employer, the person looking to hire and the person who's kind of looking for a job? Just that challenge that employers are having finding those prerequisite skills, if I can say that word right, prerequisite skills for the roles we're looking to fill.
3 times fast. Yeah. Right. First, from an employee perspective, candidate scarcity creates great negotiation leverage, especially for those that have the most in-demand skill sets. So we've talked a lot about AI. We'd put machine learning. We'd put cybersecurity, software development skill sets, all in that high demand category. They have the best shot of getting the money and the benefits demands that they request actually met. From an employer or a company standpoint, this group is responding by increasing the salaries when they have to, right? They're saving budget dollars for those most critical roles. Our research shows that nearly half of the organizations are increasing salaries to attract talent across the board, regardless of role, just to be competitive. And nearly 40% of the companies we interact with are adding new benefits and perks. Companies are also investing in their current teams with trainings, certifications, other ongoing education efforts to help keep up with the latest technologies and keep their employee base engaged.
Lots there to unpack. I think I saw one of the numbers that definitely the technology space that stood out to me is, over half, 56% of technology managers, which are usually those people hiring, right, for those different tech roles, are willing to relax the requirements to help them get candidates faster, right? Because you have, and I think we've talked about this a number of times when we talk about all the things happening in tech is, projects don't always happen on timelines, right? And part of that's tied to the talent, right? Getting the skills you have in place. Something that comes to mind, a question that comes to me when I see kind of all these moving pieces is, does it mean as a potential candidate, right? Maybe I don't have 100% of the skills that are sitting on a resume or on my resume in line with the job application. Should I go ahead and put my name in that? How many like how organizations hiring people faster, being willing to make that, okay, maybe they don't need 100%. And is there a way that they're bridging that gap, right? Because I'm assuming they need the skills they're putting on paper. I'm not somebody who writes, those
Right.
job descriptions, so I'm not 100% sure what that process looks like. So I'm curious to hear you unpack as somebody closer to it. Should
Sure.
candidates throw their hat in the ring? How are organizations really bridging the gap when they hire people and they get them in, right? If there's skills they need that maybe that person doesn't have.
Yeah, yeah. Great question. The great thing about tech is that it moves so fast, right? It
Hmm.
evolves, it changes, it gets better. That's the challenging thing also if you're trying to keep up. So my advice to job seekers would be to go for it, right? These descriptions sometimes have bleeding edge technologies, and sometimes companies will include tech on their job descriptions that they don't even have, but they intend to implement at,
Mm.
X period of time, 6 months, 12 months down the road. So job seekers should absolutely apply for a job, not disqualify themselves if they don't have every single technology or skill set listed in the description. As
Mm.
we noted earlier, companies will consider high potential candidates that are capable of learning new and emerging tech skill sets.
I think our last episode we talked a lot about even just that partnership with organizations like Robert Half, right? Who you have a recruiter and you don't burn that bridge, you just have the open dialogue. You can really navigate those type of situations where it's like, hey, I saw you guys post a job. I feel like I'm really interested. I'm really passionate about it, but I don't have all these skills. Like, help me navigate this. So I think it's encouraging for me to hear like, hey, yeah, throw your name in the hat, right? Throw your name in
Well,
the hat.
and it's an individual conversation that we have with our
Hmm.
clients on how they prioritize these technologies. I mean, sometimes these job descriptions, you're looking for a unicorn that can, do 3 pages worth of, jobs that are intended for 3 people. But the hiring leader, the CIO, the CTO that we're working with really only needs the top three, right? The top four, maybe. And it's through that partnership that we're able to understand what the big drivers are, what the big rocks are on the description, and then help find a candidate that, has that experience or has the potential to gain that experience while learning on the job.
I love that. And I think, the different roles and the thing, salary guide, right? It shows the different salaries
Mhm.
and different roles and specifically where the city you live in, right? Because you can see how you compare in Montana versus Cincinnati, Ohio versus California, because they're not going to be the same, right? Those
Right.
places are all vastly different and the market's different. And one thing that I noticed about kind of that gap is, a lot of IT managers, over half them are willing to upskill their employees. What does that look like in terms of the skills they're focused on, right? This is kind of, I think, a good point for people who are kind of maybe in between, not sure what I want to do next, navigating the tech space, to even be aware of like these are the skills that people are investing in for their employees. What are those skills specifically?
That's a great question. A lot of them are the next generation of the common technologies that are out there, right? I mean, any persistent or prevalent, technology we see, it continues to evolve to be competitive, right? And there's associated certifications. There's, have you done this in the cloud? There's, those instances, and so. The employers that are doing the best to retain their best and brightest are spending the dollars to teach their existing staff these newer technologies, right? So there's conferences, there's ongoing training, there's a variety of ways. There's certainly collegiate level classes that companies can send their staff to just equip them and make them more valuable and broaden that skill set.
No, that's good. I think even as employers kind of or employees look at these salaries, like, I want to do that. Even navigating the resumes, what those skills are, how can I kind of prepare myself for, let's say, 70 or 80% of those skills, even some commonality to be able to, be prepared to step into that. And that being said, I think something, and maybe you can flesh out the details a little bit in the data. There was some unique things that it seemed like employers were doing with retirees, or some concerns
Mhm.
about those people who were maybe at the end of their career. Walk me through what the data is showing around that specific group of people.
Yeah, I mean, this economic condition we're in right now creates a really perfect storm for bringing an employee base out of retirement and hiring them on a part-time basis and a contract engagement, right? And that's another way, by the way, side note, that companies are upskilling their full-time staff. They're bringing on contractors, they're bringing on managed solutions to help do some on-the-job training for that full-time staff. The employee candidate, or excuse me, the retired candidate base brings a wealth of knowledge, right? Sometimes decades worth of knowledge about a particular technology. They know a legacy tech like no one's business, right?
Mhm.
They also have some great intangible skills about a company's culture that maybe a newly hired employee doesn't possess.
Yeah, I love the idea of just leveraging that knowledge, right? And because you do have tech that's not going anywhere, or it still needs to be around because there's some dependencies on it, and having that knowledge in house to mentor. And I didn't even think about, I thought about the technical side when I was looking at the data, but
Yeah.
I didn't think about the culture side. That's so true. I never even thought like, hey, they've been around this company 15, 20, 30 years. They understand how it's changed. They understand, right, as somebody coming in, here's how it looks different, right? I can help you get
Sure.
knowledgeable and bridge that gap on these skills, but also the culture piece. So I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Let me ask the question that I think a lot of people probably have when it comes to salary and salary guides in this resource. Where is the money? What are the specific skills that employers are looking for that are we're seeing a movement in that are increasing, etc. What are those skills that people can go search for if they want to make the big dollar?
Well, AI is where it's at, right? That's the most highly sought skill by tech and IT teams, right? So, AI, machine learning, this is how companies are maximizing the profitability of their customer base and the customer spend by predicting, that, and a lot of that is through data and automating what doesn't need to be manual anymore. Beyond that, cybersecurity, cloud computing, security and architecture, and then software and application development are our highest.
And do you see any roles that like are a noticeable increase just in the overall salary? Are those kind of in the same bucket?
Same bucket, yeah. AI leads the pack. It's year over year salary increased nearly double the others, somewhere close to 4%, where the others maybe increased 1 to 2%.
Mm, significant. I think the demand follows. What is it? Supply follows demand.
Uh-huh.
And the demand is there. Out of curiosity, in the tech space, are there any other types of roles that you saw, right? Like we're HDI, we're all about the support industry, and it's not just the help desk agent, but it's all sorts of the support roles that support the help desk agent, right? The leadership roles, all those kind of things. And you guys put out great resources around the skills and different roles that people are looking for, right? And I'm curious if there's any other tech trends that really stood out to you, Nicole, as you were kind of digging into the data.
I think, tech support is going to continue to be a very mission critical role for keeping a company up and running. The more tech is integrated in how we live and work, the more we need help with making it
Mm.
all, work together, right? If the internet goes down, this meeting is over, right? If our video platform gives out, if my computer crashes, this meeting is over. And we are forever going to need professionals that can help us, sort through those glitches and make sure that all the systems interact together. From a technology support standpoint, it's not just, tech support, 10, 15 years ago, we'll try unplugging the system, right? It's, tech support has taken on
Mhm.
application support and, that's created a whole new skill set for those in the IT support realm.
We were at an HDI event yesterday. We had a panel
Mhm.
in Ohio. We did it in Columbus, and it was all about cybersecurity. And it was called the Cybersecurity Spooktacular. And it was really interesting because all of the people who had different backgrounds, we had
Mhm.
men, women, we had some people who've been in the industry for 20 years, some people who were just kind of, breaking in industry. One thing that I saw a trend in is the foundational knowledge when you look for roles like AI, for cybersecurity. The
Mhm.
foundational knowledge is critical, right?
Mhm.
Most people don't just jump into those roles. And if they
Right.
do, sometimes they struggle if you don't have that robust understanding of how do I set up a firewall before I can secure a firewall, right? How
Sure.
do I support
Yeah.
it? And so I think it just points to that point you made, Nicole, just points to the reality that these roles, these support roles that are never going to go away, may even lead to the future AI engineers, right? The future
Right.
cyber folks. And um, one thing that I found interesting too is just you mentioned security. Like, is that like top of the list? Where does that fall in terms of AI and the full like really in demand jobs, the development jobs? Where does security fall on that list?
I would say it's a close second. If we
Okay.
say AI and machine learning are 1A, I would say cybersecurity is 1B, right? We're trying to do things faster. We're trying to gather more data and make it into insightful information. And that data, again, that data is money. And so
Mm-hmm.
companies are very keen to protect the data. And so that is where cybersecurity, gets its job security for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I was curious because I know AI is demanding and I learned a lot about the security industry that I really didn't think about, right? I think people just let me set up these secure patches and attacking firewalls and pen testing, and it became very clear to me from the panel of people all their years of experience that pen testers are a very 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 small portion
Right,
of security,
right.
right? And I think about that being number two on the list and those skills being so high in demand, using the salary guide, right? Even to look at kind of the different roles that might be in that realm, right? That security realm, or might be able to give you that broader knowledge as somebody who is really interested in cyber. Definitely, like if we have students that listen to this, students are always eager to
Yeah.
to learn about cyber and want to get into cyber and understanding, man, all of these roles you look at in the technology, getting that fundamental knowledge is critical to know what do the bad guys actually want when they send a
Sure.
phishing email, right?
Right, right.
Do they want information? Do they want to put malware? What are they actually trying to do? So just interesting. What other trends, Nicole, do you think are worth kind of calling out from the salary guide this year?
Yeah, I would say the salary guide, and then we've got a tech ebook that's accessible on our website at roberthalf.com. It that talks a lot about tech debt. Where
Mm,
sometimes companies get in scenarios where it's like we're going to patch this system and that system together with bubblegum and band-aids and hope for the best, and that only goes so far, especially for a growing company that needs to scale. And so we end up with some junky systems, right? That aren't as efficient as we need. And so, in the name of digital transformation and automation and AI and maximizing data to make insightful decisions to maximize profitability, companies are prioritizing cleaning up that tech debt, right?
mm.
Maybe sometimes scrapping, a hodgepodge mess of systems and rebuilding from scratch, which is a really exciting, scenario if you're a technologist and you like to build things. We're seeing that take up some capital expenditure dollars in the previous years, and we expect that trend to continue.
And what does that mean for the employee, the job seeker? What kind of things and kind of experiences are companies that technical debt's something we have talked about with Robert Half a few times, and I think it's starting to pop up more and more.
Sure.
What are the things that a potential employee, somebody looking for a job, maybe looking for a career change, right? Maybe they're looking at the marketing jobs or whatever other accounting jobs, and they're like, I really really enjoy computers. I want to go into tech, but I've always spent my time in accounting or this or that. How can they prepare like to enter a company that maybe and bring value to to the process, right? To the changes you're talking about.
Sure, sure. That's a really good question. Are you talking about like in a career transition scenario?
Yeah, career
Okay.
transitions, or maybe they're in tech and they want to go to a company that is kind of doing that, right? Is starting to
Yeah.
rebuild. Like, what kind of skills and what kind of roles are you guys seeing? Like, and the salary guy probably has all of them, but what are those roles that people
Yeah.
need to bring into their company, whether it's full time or a contract basis to kind of build that? Like, what do those roles look like?
Sure. I would say, if there's someone that's looking to transition from, as you had mentioned, maybe accounting to, technology, there's absolutely an opportunity for that, right? Especially with a company in the finance space or a company, that has anything to do with, banking or numbers in general. They're going to want that industry knowledge, and everything tech is in every part of how we work,
Hmm.
right? And so that candidate that wants to make that transition can take it upon themselves to take, weekend courses. There's, development boot camps. There's, certification classes that are self-paced and online where they can gain the educational knowledge, and they got to find the right company at the right time that has the right need to get that professional experience.
More reason to network, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
More reason to engage in HDI and all the networking opportunities to meet
Yeah.
professionals and learn, right? These roles that, looking at the salary guide, maybe you're like, oh, that role, they make a lot of money, or that's more than I make, or and that seems like
Right.
an interesting role. Just navigating what that role is so much easier when you know somebody who at least knows somebody who kind of does it,
Right.
right? And
Absolutely.
it does look different in every organization, right? And it's going to vary from organization because, to your point, some organizations are in a ton of technical debt, and they're really trying to figure out the best way to, innovate with what they have so they can drive revenue, right? So they can
Right.
improve efficiencies, and it all does really tie together. Um, what other, is there any other like trends that an employer should be aware of when it comes to like the employee, right? When they're seeking, to hire someone, what should employers be aware of when it comes to salary guide and the resource, and even the technical ebook that you mentioned. The tech, is it tech ebook? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, I would say for employers, just like we had mentioned there, the great stay, the big stay, I think is what I said.
Hmm.
There's less candidates. If you find one that you like, right, that has the potential, make a move,
Mm.
right? We see clients' hearts broken over and over again because, for, their entirety of their hiring career, they've had, had to have three candidates that they felt good about before they could make an offer. And it's like, if the first candidate is a good fit, don't let the first candidate walk through the door, because
Mm.
if the first candidate is a good fit for you, they're a good fit for someone else, right? If
Mm.
you're interested in their skill set and their experience, someone else is going to be interested as well. And, the clock is ticking. You're going to lose them. And so we really, work hand in hand with our clients to help make sure that there's a streamlined evaluation process. Robert Half goes through a multi-step process to make sure that our candidates are vetted well, including, interviews like this, and, references and all sorts of things, just to make sure that, everything is up to snuff there, to help our clients make sure that they're making good decisions. But once you find a good candidate, don't sleep on them.
Yeah, I love that. Be willing to pull the lever and bring them in if you think
Right.
they got the potential. And I think the data, even we just talked about it, right, is showing that more and more employees are kind of catching on. Like I can bridge the gap on some of the things maybe that before I would have had to check every box, right?
Right.
Are
Right.
they culture fit? Do they have the base skills? Are they teachable? Are they coachable? And definitely in the tech space, you're not going to have anybody come in who knows everything that's going to be here 3 or 4 years from now.
Right. Absolutely. Good luck.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see next year when the next salary guide, releases looking at 2026, what that trend, how that trend looks. I'd imagine it's going to keep increasing, right? And it's going to continue on that same trajectory, but it'll be interesting to see. Um, Let me ask another, question about because we didn't really dive into it, the ebook, the tech ebook.
Yeah.
What is the resource? What kind of data is in there? How does it tie to salary guide? How can someone who wants to really utilize that resource, what can they look forward to seeing within the tech ebook?
It's a great tool. It goes a little bit more in depth than the salary guide, even with the trends that we're seeing, the trends around AI and machine learning, and the struggles that CIOs and CTOs have with hiring and retaining, a staff that can keep up with, the corporate initiatives, the enterprise initiatives they need to be competitive. And so it talks a lot about a lot of the topics we talked about: upskilling, utilizing consulting, utilizing contract staff, utilizing managed services to bridge some of that skill gap, as well as some best practices on how to retain your team.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Nicole, anything else about Salary Guide, Tech eBook that you wanted to kind of touch on? Make sure the audience, before we wrap up the episode, they know, right? This is really interesting, or anything that really stands out to you.
It's a free tool. You can find it on our website, roberthalf.com. Our clients use it for budgeting. Our clients use it for retaining their team. Our clients and candidates use it for asking for promotions and salary increases. So it's valuable on multiple levels, and it's also very relevant.
Really good information. Really good information. And we will link it in all of the platforms that this is streaming from, whether you're watching on YouTube, you're listening on, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or your favorite streaming platform. We will have a link to it so you can access it, save it, bookmark it, so you can go dig into it when you are interested. Whether you're looking for a career move or you're curious about what it looks like for different roles, save the link. So I did kind of give you a heads up, Nicole, as I do with all of our guests. I do want to ask you one final question. If you could rewind and spin back time, get in a time machine, you pull the lever and the little wheel spins, all the bright lights flash, and you get to meet younger Nicole, say you're just starting your career, what advice or words of wisdom would you share with younger Nicole?
Sure. I would say I would value progress over perfection, right? Let's honor the moves in the right direction, and not, discard that if it's not completely perfect. If we wait for everything to be perfect, we're going to go nowhere, right? If we keep making incremental moves in the right direction, we're going to get there faster.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Progress over perfection. I love it. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us and talking about Robert Half's Salary Guide. And, we can't wait to talk about the next resource that Robert Half releases. All year they come out, and we love having you guys on to talk about it. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rocky. This has been great.
Thanks. We'll catch you on the next episode of Bites and Banter.